So we do
I have to
one
ask
question.
You know what the GOAT's number was? 23. And the thing about this podcast, REI Baddies, they also have 23 episodes in their first year. That tells you they are the GOAT of podcasting right now. They're filling the space between OGs in the business and brand newbies. They are absolutely killing it. And also, we need way more women investors that are doing podcasts. Why? Because right now, there's proof, scientific numbers that are telling us that more women are entering into the business of real estate investing and developing than ever before. Here's the thing. You got to go check out their podcast every Monday morning at 6 a.m. These guys are such baddies, that they drop an episode early in the morning because only early birds catch that worm.
Welcome back, Baddies Nation, to another episode of REI Baddies, the show where real estate gets real. I'm your co-host,
And
Rachel
I'm Kate
Davis.
Baldwin. So Rachel and I have actually been looking forward to this one all week. And we were I'm not going to lie, we were a little bit nervous. We wanted everything to go so perfect. And so Ingryd is one of those people where the more you learn what she's building, the more your jaw just keeps going, oh my gosh, it was amazing.
It's true. Ingryd is an OG in this space. She's doing sub-2 creative finance deals all around Arizona. She has currently created the competitor with another future baddie, Raz, called creativelisting.com. She's been on Pace Morby's Get Creative podcast, and she is truly the pointy end of the spear when you talk about agents who are out working with brokers and other agents that are trying to learn how to put creative finance in their tool belt. So with that, Ingryd Hernandez, welcome to REI Baddies.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So humbled to be here, so thank you.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even know where to begin, huh? Where do we begin with you? So I guess we could start by asking you, where were you before real estate?
Well, I actually come from the corporate background. So I was in food service for about 20 years. And I was in the data management space. I grew into the data management space. So, I mean, I was helping run a department at one point that managed $3 billion. And then I kind of evolved into leadership where I was helping create new assets in the company by leveraging the data that we had and basically selling back data that our partners, our vendors never had access to in the past. So we went from being a cost center, if you think about like a back office, to then being a revenue generating department. And that was like a complete unlock for companies that have always operated as if they were still running in the early 1900s. So it really helped bring more margin to a business that makes maybe 3 cents on the dollar. So they have to go volume, right? So these companies that are really big, like the company I worked for, which was the second largest food service company in the nation, they still run on really thin margins. So every little decision can have a really big impact. But I worked in that data management space and data governance space for that part of my career for a good 13 years.
Okay.
And then I did go and get my real estate license in 2013.
Okay.
So it was always my side hustle.
Yeah.
Like I've always had more than one hustle at a time, really. I mean, like my early career, I was a caregiver and working corporate. And then I transitioned into having a real estate license when one of my mentors, who's now my private money lender, he was like, you can't have all your eggs in one basket. And I took that to heart. So I was creating like $60,000 to $100,000, depending on the year, of extra side income. That's awesome. That's the way that I started.
So how'd you find pacing them?
Okay. So I had this as my side hustle, this real estate agent world. And I found Pace during COVID. So part of what was happening in that environment, at least from the corporate side, especially when you talk about food service, one of the highest impacted industries during COVID was food service, right? If you guys recall, not being able to go to restaurants, everything became delivery.
Oh,
There was a
yes.
lot of like, there were a lot of our, unfortunately, a lot of our restaurant partners were wiped out because of COVID. It also created a lot more tracking. Like, we used to do stuff called smart foot traffic tracking. So we could figure out of our customer segmentation, right? So the operators we worked with, who was actually getting business and whose business was going down, but they were too scared to tell us. And we would know. We would know because we could see who was not going to their restaurant, whether it was for pickup or for dine-in. So we got really intelligent around that,
And what year was
so that
that?
we would know. It was in 2020,
Okay.
2021. Yeah, yeah. And however, I was put into a position where I had to lay people off because we were, regardless of our attempts to see which customers could we help, how could we really create some retention and help our customers grow, we that wasn't
Yeah.
enough. Like the impact was unprecedented, right? And so we had to lay people off, and I knew that it would be a matter of time that I would get laid off. So I really started to think more, how do I help myself so that if that day were to ever come, I wouldn't be caught with my pants
Yeah,
down,
no,
if
I
you
get
will.
that.
So, yeah, so I started to research real estate investing. Had tried investing or getting to understand it more back in around like 2015, 2016. I was around somebody who was investing, but I realize now that they were communicating in a way that I would not understand, and I almost think that that was on purpose because the communities in that space and that
Right,
time were very scarcity based,
right.
right? And now realizing that the reason Pace has had such a strong influence in our industry, it's not just because he's so smart and he knows so much. There's always been plenty of
For
smart
sure.
gurus. I think where he's changed the landscape is that he has such a go-given
Cares.
mentality that that is really the highest switch. And he literally put a lot of gurus out of business. So when I came into the space in 2020, there was always tons of marketing for all of these gurus. And I really think that Pace dominates this space now because of his go-given
Absolutely.
mentality and the fact that it's so attainable. So like to get into his communities, like I've constantly seen like 40, 50, 60 grand, limited memberships, meaning 6 months to a year, where when you're joining sub two, it's a fraction of that in its
One
lifetime. So
time.
that is a
Yeah.
complete change.
I
Yeah.
can't agree more with
I
that.
love
That is
that.
definitely something I find very interesting. Um, I love that. I love our
I think
community.
what dovetails I'm sorry, I don't mean to what dovetails for that pretty naturally though is your
Right.
background in data management and knowing what you're doing with Raz with creativelisting.com. So I was fortunate enough to be in Monterey last year when you and Raz were up on stage and broadcast to OC like, hey, this is what we're putting out and you're all owners in it. I would love for you to talk about how creativelisting.com came to be. And before you do that, I want to make sure Baddies Nation understands this is just one thing that Ingryd does. Like, Ingryd has a whole like to-do list of things that make me
Yeah.
exhausted. So I just want you to just walk through with our audience how creativelisting.com came to be and what you see it as the future.
Yeah. So with creative listing, at its core base, it's a marketplace. So because of my data background, and I've actually helped launch e-commerce strategies in the food service space in two very large food service companies, part of that is just having what we call a data schema. So like the attributes that you would see that make sense to that marketplace. Creative listing is unique in that it creates attributes and it has function within it that other competitors like a Zillow don't have because they don't specialize in creative financing. Now, what you would see in their marketplace is somebody trying to do a creative
Right.
deal but it's hard to
Seller
find because they
finance
don't
or
have.
sub to in the description or something like that. Yeah.
Right. They don't have those unique attributes that would allow you to play and understand and filter that data more easily. Where creative listing, that is the very precipice. Like that's that is how we start, and then we come back to more traditional. So you could still see cash and traditional deals in creative listing, but it was built for
I know, I
creative
had my
as
listing on
the
there.
start. Yeah. Yeah. So the way that creative listing came about though, so if you guys are followers of Pace Morby, he'd have these challenges called No One Left Behind.
Yeah.
And I had done a deal with Raz. I actually helped find Raz his primary home.
Oh.
And it was very by happenstance. So Raz was looking for a primary home here in Arizona, coming down from Seattle. Our friend Justin Tumanowski, who also runs dealsauce.io, he's like, hey, will you talk to my friend Raz? Will you help him find a home? And I was like, yeah, no problem. At the time, Caroline Kane would come to me when she'd have these creative deals that she couldn't disposition because that's not what she focuses on. And I was like, yeah, I happen to have somebody who would be perfect for this property. And so we were able to sell this property to Raz. And, you know, it's a beautiful modern hacienda. We even did a podcast about it. But when Pace was doing these challenges, these like No One Left Behind challenges, getting deals under contract creatively, arguably, at least for me, very easy to do. The part that's very difficult to do is finding the kinds of buyers that would buy those properties because we are now, not necessarily back in 21, but now in 26, we are in an environment where a lot of these properties are at or slightly above rents. So we're getting into a market that's difficult to disposition these opportunities because the ones that cash flow are much fewer and far between. This is why we're starting to talk about like how do we connect with group homes, because those can actually push the amount that we could get every month, or where we are now talking about the market that I focus on, which is primary home buyers who want these properties, who have the capital for a strong down payment and take over these mortgages, but they can't qualify with your typical bank. So when these challenges were happening, no problem, we were getting them under contract. And then I created a janky a landing page for all of these properties to see if we could market them. It wasn't a very good experience for people, but it was pretty. And so Pace got me and Raz in a room because Raz had actually approached Pace also about creating a marketplace. He's like, you two need to talk. And I was like, hey, we know each other. I sold him his house. This is perfect.
I love this. I love us.
Pace being the ultimate connector. Yeah. So and we were off to the races.
Well, and another thing that happened too with sorry to cut you off, but I just think this is so important, is most people who bought homes in 21 in some markets, I don't know about everywhere, I think Arizona was the same, they bought high with low interest rates, right? So I'm seeing a lot of that. So they don't have any equity, right? Some people just don't have equity, and then they have these really low interest rates. So that is their selling point. Like, hey, we can give you what you want, but we're going to do sub 2, or we're going to do some sort of wrap on that. So going
right. And if you actually model out the math, the data, even though their price point might be higher than what you would buy a property for, when you actually put a schedule out and show them, hey, this is where you're going to start your loan, which is a loan that's already at the 4th year or so of the origination, the huge component of the interest has already been paid by the seller. So like your bell curve on that mortgage is less. So you can actually show them, you could buy it at this right now with this new interest, and here's how much you would pay over the lifetime of the loan. Or here's where you would start even though your purchase price is higher, and here's how much you would pay for the lifetime of the loan. And a lot of times,
I work with you like every single day, because everything is so amazing how you speak about this and how you make it sound so easy to, I'm sorry, that was a little tangent. mean, you're so spot on. I kind of want to ask you, like, where there's a time, like, do you have an example of what you did, like, where you worked, like, with a client that has done a wrap that had, like, a great story? Do you have any kind of that you did, like, a
Great
great, like,
story.
something, like a testimonial on something, like, one of these deals, like, where there was a time where you did a wrap for a client and it just came, the news, like, the story about it, like, what happened?
Yeah. So I do want to preface that I only focus in Arizona because in Arizona we can do an agreement for sale. This is not an option for a state like Texas. So even though Texas is actually known for wraps, when we look at the per capita, like per capita, sorry, Texas does the most wraps in our nation. However, Arizona allows for agreements for sales, which you really can't do in Texas. And I prefer to set them up in that structure because this type of executory contract, which is also known in other places as a land contract or a contract for deed, it allows for the seller to have more control because the deed stays in their name. So in Arizona, the reason I wholesale these deals to these primary home buyers is because sellers stay on the deed, which de-risks some of the due on
No,
sale
it's
clause.
huge.
And yeah, and then if the buyer defaults, the sellers can take back the property in as little as 45 days for the most part.
So
So
LRA,
as a result of that,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so as a result of that, one of the things that our team does is we actually educate the seller on how they can take their house back if something happens. We're very upfront that we will likely not be the buyer. I always do look at deals for me though, because I'm always adding to my portfolio. If it doesn't meet my requirement, then we talk to the seller about that. We're actually working a deal right now where I've had somebody in my DMs for the last 3 years who really wanted a house in the city of Mesa, but those are really hard to come by. And he really wanted a pool. Those two things stuck out in my head, and he wanted a monthly payment that starts with the 2 in the front, right? So think of like, 25, 2,800. Well, this property met all of that criteria, and it broke my heart that it actually didn't meet my buy box. But remember, if it doesn't meet your buy box, be prepared to lose money. Deal I've lost money in has been because it didn't meet my buy box. So I went to the property. It's a 2-bedroom property. You could add more square footage by enclosing the 2-car carport, and it's already partly done. So it would be a really easy thing, $10,000 max to enclose that and now have a new master
Right.
bedroom. The property has been very well taken care of. And when I first walked it, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not able to buy this. This is not in my buy box. The price point is like if the monthly payment was maybe $400 less or $500 less, I could buy it and it would be something in my portfolio, but I can't. And so the seller, being a good friend of mine, he's like, no worries, maybe next time. And then I reached out to him 2 weeks later because I was like, oh my gosh, I actually have a buyer for this, but I'm not the buyer. I let him know that I'm not the buyer. I'm going to help facilitate and put this together. We're going to still verify the income. We're still going to do a
Sure.
background check. We're still going to do like what their credit score is. And this person actually had a really great credit score. They're above 800. The thing is that they really wanted this low 4.25 interest rate, I believe it is. And they would have to come out of pocket the same that they would if they were going to go get like an FHA loan.
Right.
So where you still kept the entry fee pretty
Yeah.
reasonable. So he's like, sign me up. So we're closing this Friday on this deal. This is
Yeah,
somebody
congratulations.
Awesome.
yeah, thank you. So this is somebody who's been in my DMs for, again, 3 years. They're buying a loan that originated in 2022, so 4 years ago. Think about it. So like mortgage companies front load their interest the first 7 years.
Okay.
So then, not that the pay down is any different per se of like a 30-year amortized loan, but he will have equity build up much faster because he's starting a 30-year loan at year 26 instead of year
That's
30.
awesome.
Yeah, so a lot of pros. It met what he was looking for. It was a good entry. We've answered a ton of questions because we're still talking about people who are not necessarily in our communities. So they're not as educated. And you know what's funny though? The seller was an ex-mortgage lender and he had no idea. So I've used this also to educate him, especially if he has any other past
Yes.
clients who would struggle to get traditional institutional loans that
Well,
they can
I
come to
didn't
us.
either. So, and I had been a top 3 Berkshire Hathaway agent, like in the nation. I've done tons of like traditional real estate, and I didn't know until 25, no, 24. The end of 24, I went to Clever Summit on an accident because Ryan from Million Dollar Listing was there, and Pace happened to be speaking.
In Florida.
Yeah, in Miami. So, I mean, yeah, because I'm in Key West. And it was mind-boggling. So that's why I'm very interested in this conversation. It's a really necessary conversation.
As an agent, oh,
No,
I'm sorry,
I'm
go
done.
ahead.
No, I was going to ask a follow-on question. Keep going.
Oh yeah. As an agent, you know, when I think about my experience of having my license from 2013 to 2020, I've said this publicly before. I didn't know shit about real estate until I joined Pace Morby's Sub 2 mentorship. And I say it very explicitly because I think, and I'm not talking down on agents, there's very good agents out there, but agents do not need to get into the weeds. At the core of it all, we are salespeople. We connect
That's great.
people with properties and we sell. So to have to understand title and how it's taken, we need to know like surface level. To understand how a deed works, we don't really have to worry about that.
Title
Title and
does
the
all
mortgage
that.
company worry about that for us.
Yeah.
Right. All we care about is, are we satisfying what my qualified buyer wants? And usually it's very superficial, other than, you know, making sure you have like the things that de-risk, so inspection and things like that. And I am a good salesperson, so for me selling was no problem, but I wasn't necessarily in the real estate space to solve problems. And when you get into investing, that's really where you're solving problems and where I feel it tickles my brain, if you will, because I love puzzles. I love to figure out, how do I fit this into what somebody needs? And it could be a complicated puzzle, it could be a simple puzzle, but I love the puzzling of it all.
I have a follow-on question about problems because look, I love that we always ask about a great news story, right? But we've talked about this on REI Baddies several times, which are people's character is not revealed during the good times. It is revealed during the crappy times. And so I would love to hear a story from your perspective of a deal where it either was going sideways, could have gone sideways, and you chose either to restructure to be able to take care of the client, or just a way that normal people would have gone off the rails and you chose to keep things ethical and on pace with where we need to be as a community.
1,000%. Well, I've had a few of those, and I would say they're less about clients and more like my own deals. And again, out of my buy box deal. So we bought a property in Flagstaff. I negotiated a hell of a deal. We're buying at $285,000, and really looking back, we should have just wholesaled it because it wasn't our market. I think what was really driving us was that we knew we could make double, triple digits on it, right? So we bought it for 285. We're like, oh, if we add square footage, which was something that we've done before because we are investors who flip, and we know what it like. We have our architect partner who knew how to add square footage, and we're like, oh, you know, they don't demand as much from their county, so it was
Sure.
easy to get
Yeah.
the permits. So because the permits were easy to get, before all of that was easy to get, we're like, oh, we're gonna fly. So we bought it at 285. At the time, we're like, okay, we need to put maybe $150,000 into the property, and we would be able to sell it for like 650, right? So it was a really, really great deal. Anyway, it did not go that way. The partnership I was in fell apart. It depends on who you speak to, but you know, my part of the responsibility was taken care of, which is acquire a great ass deal and go raise capital for it, both things that I complied. And then the other piece was like asking for, how's the project management going? There was even a point where I knew that this GC was not good enough, and we had collectively agreed to have that GC on, and I was like, I think we need to get rid of them. And they this is where being nice, and this person is very nice, but this is where being nice can cost you. And it's not about nice, it's about your dollars and cents. And when you're doing a flip, every single day costs you money. And if you can't think of it in that way, you are in the wrong business. So I could not convey that enough. And we had a fallout during this particular property being renovated. We ended up keeping this property over 2 years trying to renovate it. It killed any profit we were supposed to have. It worse than killed the profit. We ended up both out of pocket close to 70 grand each. And in order to make our private money lenders whole, I had to move over that debt to another one of my properties and create a deal out of, again, I had a really good relationship with this private money lender. So I was able to move over their debt, and then I had to give up half of an asset to this private money lender to satisfy, being able to keep this debt on, and I had to get creative. So while experiencing it all, it sucked. Like, I'm still very emotional about it. I'm trying to be very, objective here.
Well,
It really breaks my heart that we could have made a lot of money had both of us, and this includes myself, been way more tough on ourselves about meeting.
so what did you
certain
learn from that?
milestones.
What'd you take?
Definitely need to have your operating agreement very specifically say who has what. Now, here's the struggle with this one. We were still in like our dating phase when we bought this property. So we had it in both our LLCs, but our JV should have said, hey, this is how we're going to do this. Here's who's responsible for what. If we meet or if we lose more than 2 or 3 milestones, then the party not responsible for those milestones has the option to buy the other out. I think that would have been less dramatic and would have allowed me to take, because I already had to do that for another property. I had to take it back, and it was a property that we were supposedly going to lose around $50,000 or $60,000. I took back the property and was able to put my GC relationship in place. I ended up making like $2,000, which was way better than losing 60
Yes.
grand. But I would have done something like that much sooner had I felt empowered to do that. And I think it's important to write that into your agreement.
Communication.
Now,
You
we
said-
did have a lot, like there were some, I'll say, exteriors of this, like the city ended up not being as easy to
Okay.
work with. I also think there were some design elements that were just stupid, like putting the HVAC on top of the house when you're talking about an area that gets snow. In Arizona, it's very common to have
Sure.
your HVAC unit on your
Yeah.
on your roof. But even more modern design doesn't
Yeah.
do that anymore. It puts it
Yeah.
beside the house. So I think that was a complete miss. And my ownness to that is I should have vetoed that design, and I didn't think about it.
Was
So
this something that you did at the beginning, or is this recent? I'm trying to think. Like,
we were under contract with this property in 23.
yeah. I mean, listen, we've all done
Yeah,
things.
2024.
Yeah.
Yeah. I made a lot of money with this person and with this partnership. It's just I've also lost a lot of opportunity and lost a lot of money with this person too. So kind of evened out.
You said something when you were talking about all this, though, Ingrid, that really struck me because it's something that Kimberly Fisher said on her episode with us. She talked about the difference between being nice and being kind. And it has literally been living rent free in my mind. And what you are talking about is literally demonstrative of it. It doesn't feel nice to be kind to people sometimes and tell them you're messing up. Like, you're messing up and it's costing us money. And it feels not nice, but it's what needs to
Sure.
be done. And I'm honestly really appreciative to hear someone who's been doing
Yeah.
this as long as you say the same
Yeah.
damn thing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I really think it's, I really want to, it's kind of going back a little bit, but the agreement of sale, I know that this is kind of like going way back, but Ella Ray was talking about putting her properties into a trust, and we had talked a lot about that in the show, and then her talking, what, I guess this could kind of not necessarily be a conversation now, maybe in the future with us, but this is definitely something that I think I would benefit from. And I know that that's kind of where you're heading, to educate agents. And I think that if you really did that, you would really help a lot of people. And I think you could be very beneficial to agents, even as this agent over here sits down here, and I have a lot of education from this already, just educating myself through our community. We have this talk show. I'm constantly learning. But until you do it, because I feel like with sub two in general, it's very nerve-wracking to me. I'm a perfectionist, but I'm also like, my clients are like my babies, and I get really nervous, like knowing like, well, what happens if they don't do this? And so when she said that the trust would actually give them some equity or something, again, we can get into this later, but
So there's a difference of opinion with Ella Ray on that.
I know
I am
she
not
has.
in
She told
agreement
me
with
Paige
that.
has a different opinion
Let's
on it
hear,
too.
let's hear Ingrid. We heard Ella. Let's hear Ingrid's.
Yeah. So I do appreciate when people are trying to empower their sellers more. I think that's really important. I don't know the laws in Florida because I've only wholesaled 2 deals in Florida. Both properties I probably should have kept, but regardless. A couple of things. One, and this is where I've been really tossing and turning on whether or not I go and educate agents. In many states and in many brokerages, having fiduciary, which is what an agent is,
Yes.
does not cover creative deals. So oftentimes your E&O does not cover you being the fiduciary in a creative deal. So I am never a fiduciary in a creative deal. I generally ask agents who have listings that have been sitting a really long time to give up their fiduciary, but I will still promise, as much as I can, a commission-sized referral. Why do I use that phrase that I came up with, the commission-sized referral? Because when we talk about referrals as agents, we're always expecting, here's the commission, and as a referral, I'm going to get like 20% of it. The goal is not to do that with agents who are I'm asking them to give up their fiduciary. I'm asking them for the connection, and because they are licensed, they can get paid a referral legally. They can also wholesale if their brokerages allow it. If they want to, they can sit into that wholesale seat if their brokerage allows it, and if they allows it, then they can actually do it through their LLC. So now their commission-sized referral now does not go through a split, and they can make that whole 100% of that deal. So this is how I stair-step an agent in learning that they have a lot more capacity to make more money if they understand how they get paid. That's one. In terms of the whole, and so I am working through, like, do I educate agents? Because here's the other reality check, right? The last 2 years, 2 years ago, 74%, last year, 71% of agents who have licenses made zero money from real estate. So maybe they were investor agents, but who knows? Because we went from 90,000 wholesalers to 9,000 wholesalers. So arguably they did not. So we are losing a lot of people in real estate because we are not transacting. We've had one of the, and forgive me, I'm a
No, I
deal
love
person,
it.
so
This is
we've
amazing.
had the worst, number of transactions in over 30 years. Going actually even bigger than that, I believe, is the 70s that had just as worse number of transactions. And so agents are leaving because there's just not worth keeping their license. And we have wholesalers that are leaving also because there's not enough transactions happening. So when I look at that marketplace and I'm like, do I want to go after a shrinking pool of folks who aren't making money? So that's why I've struggled.
Well, I
to
think
figure
that
out
you
whether
help
or
them
not I
make money
really-
by giving them other options on how to sell. And I also,
No doubt, but But let's be really honest with ourselves, Kate. There's a lot of nickel and diming that happens to wholesalers and to agents. It's one reason why I want to keep creative listing. There will always be a free subscription component to it, because we get nickel and dime to heck. Like, it's really, really hard, like subscriptions for this, subscriptions for that. And so at some point it's just really hard to keep up. But anyway, that's my soapbox. That's why it's been hard for me to figure out, do I put time and effort with people who are not making money?
So I guess with that, Ingrid, for anyone who is an agent then that's listening now, what is a conversation you would encourage them to have with a broker that fought them on a creative finance deal, not because they're just trying to get a creative finance deal, but actually works in the benefit of the seller? How would you tell them to approach that?
Education first. So I do not like to even set the intention that I'm fighting. I generally use storytelling to say, here's how I've helped people with similar situations and how you could choose to help your seller or not. It's totally fine, because then I'll just wait until your listing is no longer in place, and then I will go and help the seller if you're not willing to play ball. So I don't take it as a fight, I take it as patience. So I'm going to patiently educate, and then I'll patiently take over the deal once you're no longer
and that's kind of why I left Berkshire Hathaway at the end of last year.
Okay.
So hear me.
There's a lot of very innovative brokerages, and I'm happy to say that I'm with a broker that allows a wholesale addendum. Arguably, I don't know of any independent contractor agreement unless they were built by investors or
none of that.
agents.
None of those people do it. Berkshire, Coldwell, even like Sotheby's, none of them will even let you. And they won't let you do a wholesale deal. They won't let you do like a creative deal. They won't let you even once you have that listing until it expires, you can't even get rid of it if you wanted to. They'll give it to another agent. So there's a lot of that going on. I think it's for that's why I'm now at this like little tiny brokerage, which I love. She's great. She's totally open to what I'm doing, and she supports that. So that was the reason we moved over. But yeah, I think it's definitely something to consider. I really do think that it's not something you should put on the back burner anymore. I mean, I can share a lot more.
Can I pause you for a moment? In defense of these brokerages, in defense of them, again, I like to dig deeper versus I don't like to just play the headline. In defense of these big guys, they're talking about volume and what is going to pay them. So this is a business decision to say, we can't do volume in such a high risky environment. So E&Os normally do not cover creative deals. In the state of Arizona, if you wrong a seller as a fiduciary, or if a seller or buyer feel you've wronged them, they actually have 15 years to come back and sue your brokerage. So I
get it.
Tons of empathy to brokers who say anything outside of fiduciary, which includes wholesaling, because you're a principal in wholesaling, and a referral into creative, they will not want to be a part of that, because they don't want the risk, and they don't get paid. So I totally understand. So when I came to Real, one of the things that I required was the wholesaler's addendum to the independent contractor agreement. The wholesaler's addendum allows me to work as principal and be able to work my own investing deals. And they allow people to come in using the wholesaler's addendum, but as long as they are working with somebody who is experienced. So I've had people come under me at Real because they want to do deals this way, or they have experience doing deals this way, and they know that listing a property is a tool in their toolbox. So they're more investor centric first and agent centric second. And so that's why I've been happy about my move, because it allows me flexibility without risking.
And I do want to say, when I was leaving Berkshire, it was very bittersweet. It was like, no, you stay. And it was like, I know, but I don't want, I miss it. I do miss my people, and I love my brand. I loved Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, there was not a bad thing to say about it. They were a great brokerage. It was just my time. So I want to speak that too. Like, I have nothing negative to say about these brokerages. I think that they fill a different role,
Me too.
right?
It's just how risky do you want your
Oh,
business to be? Because at the same time, you have to still oversee them to make sure they're doing things the right way, even though they're doing business that doesn't benefit you
right.
monetarily. So what was really very empowering again for me is that our wholesaler's addendum says I have to indemnify the brokerage. I always must disclose that I'm a licensed agent. I must have E&O insurance. These are all things that I feel very much give me the guidance so that, if something were to happen, I can't come back and say, oh, I didn't know how I was supposed to act. And the broker can't come back and say that either. So I feel if you're an agent and you don't have a clear line of boundaries of where you can and cannot play in the investment space, you are at risk. You are at
That's
risk
why I
because
don't
you
do
should be
it as much as I could. And if you taught me how to do it, then I would do it more. There are plenty agents out there.
But damn it, these
Can't tell
agents
there's
don't
no
want to pay
payment.
me.
Started coaching like me that want to do it, that know about it, but don't feel like they have the guidance to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Drop the mic.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, I appreciate that. I've been like tossing, like, do I go and I mentor folks? Like,
Well, we can talk about that on this
I think
side.
there's a part of me where I'm like, how do I ask them for money when I know so many are struggling? Like, that's the part I'm
We'll
struggling.
talk about that too. So
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Ingrid, I actually have a really great idea for that that we can talk offline with Kate about too. But we have gotten to the what is it, the firing round question. Kate, are you ready for this?
yes. Oh my gosh. All right, go for it. You do it today.
I'm doing it today. Okay, Ingrid, so this is rapid fire. There's no overthinking. It's just go.
But like, you don't
So,
think about it. We're gonna
uh,
ask you a question. You say it quickly.
So would you subject to or seller financing? If you could do one of those for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Seller financing.
One book that changed how you think.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, everybody else out there.
What does, when you have a vulnerable seller, how do you explain creative finance to a vulnerable seller for the first time?
Oh, that one's tricky because you have to understand who you're speaking with. So I meet the sellers wherever they're at. So if it's somebody who needs analytical feedback, like one of my greatest feat, and forgive me for being stereotypical, but I love the Indian culture. I have many partners in the Indian culture, but my biggest like honor is having done a sub-2 deal with somebody who is from the Indian culture because they are so great at bartering and negotiating. So the fact that I got one to close with me as a sub-2 deal is like one of my greatest feats. But that's somebody who was a really tough cookie. And so it just depends on what kind of personality. One of my top 5 strengths in the Clifton Strength Finders is individualization. So I individualize people to how they need to hear the message.
I love that. Last question would be what's the thing most investors are sleeping on right now that you see clearly?
Their network. I think investors don't realize that they have a lot more options if they're even way more open to explaining their struggle, like I'm explaining my struggle to you, and you both are giving me all the support. But really, and if your network is a network you can't do that with, then your network sucks, and you need to go build better friends.
Yep, I agree.
Freaking love that. How do people get a hold of you, Ingrid? If they are like, Ingrid's the dopest, I want to figure out how to bring her value, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, I'm updating my landing page, but in the meantime, it's ingrydhernandez.com, and my first name does have a Y in it, so it's INGRYD Hernandez.com, or you can reach me on Instagram, also Ingrid_Hernandez.
Kate, do you want to ask the signature question?
So we ask this to all of I don't know if you've seen any of our episodes, but if you have, this is a question we have asked every guest on our show. What makes you, Ingryd Hernandez, an REI baddie?
I think because I have the capacity to be so multifaceted that I can do a lot of things and do them well, which is a struggle with some folks that may only need to stick to one lane. And if I were to only stick to one lane, I wouldn't be able to stick around very long. So we never questioned the Pace Morbies or the Rhea Campbells as to why they're doing so many things. Arguably, women get that question more than men, but I love that I can be a Pace or a Rhea where I have a lot of interests.
That's so cool. Ingryd, by the way, I have never been like, she's doing too much. You are doing exactly what you need to be because you're excelling in all of it.
Love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been great. I appreciate
love
this
it.
conversation.
Thank you for having,
Of course.
for coming.
Oh, go ahead, Kate.
I'm just very grateful. I've learned a lot today. I've learned exactly what, I needed to hear this. So it was really interesting. It was something I've been struggling with, trying to figure out what I want to do with certain things. And I just think there's such a benefit for agents. And I've been it's been a consistent conversation that I've been having with some people, and it's like it won't go away. So I'm like, okay, God, I gotta think. Okay, let's stop. So I have some ideas for you too, and I look forward to hopefully working with you here in the future. But thank you for your time. It's been great.
I think the biggest thing that our audience needs to know right now is if they have not registered for creativelisting.com, and it's not creative listings, it's creativelisting.com, everyone. Go get your butt on that website. And if you'd be shocked if you are getting your teeth cleaned, if you're talking to someone at the grocery store, if you're talking to anybody that you think may struggle with affordable housing or being able to achieve their first single family home, damn it, if you are not recommending that website, you are not a good friend to Ingryd. You
And you're not a good friend to your friend.
I need you to be better.
Yeah. By the way, we have single family houses, we have land, and we just recently opened up RV and mobile home parks to be listed.
Oh,
See, guys, that's it. And as always, guys, if anything in this episode moved you, please either tag the person that needs to hear something Ingryd said, reshare it, because every single time you guys are doing that by simply subscribing, which by the way, thank you all 505 of you now.
I think we lost her.
We just appreciate it. So, again, we release episodes 6 a.m. every Monday, and following Ingryd will be Mandy Konecki. So please, everyone, go ahead and ring that bell. And until next time,
Stay baddie. Say hi, Missy.